Good afternoon. Welcome to the Seattle School Board's Board of Director Legislative Meeting for September 4th, 2019, first day of school. And before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge and honor the First Peoples of the Puget Sound Territories by acknowledging that we are on land of the Coast Salish tribes. Roll call, please.
Director Geary?
Here.
Director Burke?
Here.
Director Harris?
Present.
Director Pinkham?
Here.
Director Mack?
Here.
Director DeWolf?
Here.
And if everyone who chooses to would like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Given that it is the first day of school, we have no student performance today. Madam Superintendent, technical difficulties? The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. And welcome back to school. It was a great, great day. I'll talk about that in a bit. But before I start, I do want to welcome our new Chief Legal Counsel, Greg Narver, to our team. Greg is another great steal from the city of Seattle, and we're so fortunate to have his leadership and wealth of experience. So thank you, Greg, for joining us and being a part of the team. We get to have started the school with the launch of the strategic plan. Today, our tens of thousands of students entered our classrooms. Families shared their most valuable resource with us, their sons, daughters, grandkids, nieces, and nephews. And so we're so honored to have their trust in our system each and every day. The importance of this work is never lost on me. We help build the hopes and dreams of these families, and we have the obligation to do right by each of them. Their futures are counting on it, on us. As you'll know, these are the 3 areas of focus going into this year: 3rd grade reading, welcoming environments, culturally responsive professional practice. We opened the doors to 104 schools across Seattle today. All, including the middle and high schools, have been charged with supporting the work to make certain that all of our 3rd graders are reading at or above grade level by 3rd grade. And this is a big lift for our district, but everybody's been asked to find their place in that goal. A team made up of central office and school staff worked all summer on start of school issues. And I want to thank Wyatt Jesse and Fred Podesta and their teams for their collaboration on this project. It's a huge, huge lift to make sure they're meeting every day. And it's just important to know that the silos in central office continue to come down around a lot of different types of work, particularly with this team made up of staff from facilities, capital, transportation, HR, budget, school ops, CAI, all worked through a punch list of over 100 items to make sure all classrooms were ready. All right, Nemo. They worked through a punch list of over 100 items to make sure all classrooms were ready for learning today. Members of this team were also responsible for opening Magnolia, Lincoln, Ingram, and Queen Anne. Thank you to all who helped create those spaces to ensure that learning could happen. I know a lot of you were at those ribbon cuttings. They were really awesome. Community turning out, so happy about their new learning spaces. Our wonderful, Our wonderful Director of Nutrition Services, Aaron Smith, all of you have seen he's been getting some great accolades across the city, which means that we continue to hire the very best. He invited Fred Podesta and me to speak to his team as they prepared to greet students. Mr. Smith grounded the Nutrition Services Providers Day of Training in Racial Equity and Welcoming Environments. I shared how important their role is to support our students' well-being, and Mr. Podesta expressed his gratitude to them for teaching students how to be, and just be, like in the lunchroom and with each other, which is just as important as knowing how to read. Their work is tied to the strategic plan. All staff across this district know that we must all find our place in that. And so I'm excited to see the changes Mr. Smith has planned for the upcoming school year. As you know, our educators returned to work this week. Gail Selhorst, the arts manager, invited me and Parker, who is an 8th grader from Pathfinder, to kick off the event for all visual and performing arts teachers. Parker was a super hard act to follow. Parker was there to talk about making sure that we are making transgender students visible in our system, and the importance of that. Students like Parker continue to speak their truths, and we must listen, learn, and act. The rest of the day was focused on the strategic plan, including 3rd grade reading. And throughout the day, Ms. Selhorst grounded the work in racial equity, and I just want to thank Gail and her team as well. Now, one thing that I was fortunate to do last week was meet Superintendent Forbes Bottomley. He was the first Seattle superintendent from Montana who served in Seattle Public Schools, and he served from 1965 to 1973. He's 98 years old. According to archives, he was confronting similar issues in 1968 that we are trying to address today in 2019. He and some teacher colleagues introduced a publication called The Role of Racial Minorities in the United States. It was a book aimed to correct general ignorance about how people of color participated in and contributed to American society. The book was prepared specifically for the Seattle Public School District's desegregation program. Points developed in the book included the fact that an African American was the first to die in the Boston Massacre of 1770, and that 2,000 African Americans fought in the American Revolution. Dr. Bottomley said, "It is just the beginning, but it should be used by all teachers to supplement and correct the inadequacies of present courses and texts in recognition of the contributions of persons of all minority races." And so I just thought it was really phenomenal to sit down with him and hear his story and just reflect on the idea that we are still fighting these same fights. And even though we have a bold new strategic plan, these issues continue, and that we are, it's that true statement of the arc of history is long. And here was a guy who was doing that similar work. And so it was just really nice to hear him and sit down with him and to kind of talk with a piece of living history. He had some good stories about Montana and his transition to Seattle as well.
You'll be meeting with someone when you're 98?
Hopefully I'll be 98 someday and still be able to meet with somebody. Someday. That concludes my remarks. Thank you, President Harris.
Okay, we are at board committee reports. However, most of our committees reported out just a week ago, but perhaps the chair of A&F can report on the quarterly audit meeting of yesterday, kind sir.
That I can. A&F did have their quarterly A&F meeting last night. Board members Geary, Mack, and Harris were in attendance. I appreciate President Harris definitely showing up. She's not on the assigned committee, but having her there to be part of the conversation is much appreciated. I want you to know that. Yeah. During the meeting, we did have our Andrew Medina, our internal auditor, present his internal audit update. We did say we had approved that, but he did notify us that he will make some additions because he still wants to meet with some of the small cabinet members to look at some issues. But then again, as our finance committee members, we can accept any changes that he makes, and he'll present them to us, and we'll make sure we do that in the proper order that needs to be done. most of the stuff that we discussed at the ANF were actually things that we're looking at closing. I appreciate all the work of our staff here at the John Stanford building. Guess one things that for me that kind of stood out were still some ongoing issues about site councils, PTAs, PTOs. We're looking at addressing how the communication between those organizations and the schools that they work with go, making sure transactions are following proper protocols and procedures. And I see this hopefully leading to that we do have something that schools will know to follow, so we can track how funds sometimes flow into schools through those organizations, and again, for the benefit of everyone that's involved. We also had some discussion with, I'm sorry, I'm blanking here. The other issue that we're looking at, fiber optics, yes, and how we looking at the money coming in there, because we do get a credit through the city of Seattle, and where does that credit go to and stuff, and we are looking to get some more feedback on that, hopefully as soon as the October meeting, to see what we can do with and making sure those funds are being tracked correctly. Others that just feel like are, again, the projects that we're closing out, some things that we feel that would need to be addressed, and the agenda's online. If there's anything that people have questions about, it's a public document. Please look at it and make some comments.
Director Mack, you had some updates?
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on, we have our ops meeting tomorrow and the agenda is now posted. There's a lot of construction bars coming through because we have a lot of work going on, which is great. But I also just wanted to mention that we're going to be having an update on the start of school, including current enrollment numbers, et cetera, so that'll be interesting, and also an update on how transportation went. And the initial report that I'm hearing is that we've had less than 1% late buses. So out of 600 and some odd buses, only 7 were late this morning. And I know there's still, this is huge success. And I'm super excited about that. It sounds like that we're not suffering from the same driver shortage we were before. And I'm sure, I kept hearing on social media that there's little glitches where maybe people weren't catching the stop, or just there's still glitches that folks are dealing with, but my understanding is that those are getting resolved through customer service and being handled really well. So major shout out to our team for a great start of school with the buses. Additionally, tomorrow we're going to be talking about the process and timeline for community engagement around student assignment and boundaries. So that'll give a context for the timeline for that process for the next school year. This one's already adopted, but it'll be for the next school year. And I think our goal is to adopt those by November. And we're also getting an update on the Advanced Learning Task Force and their work and how that ties into the student assignment planning around those topics. And additionally, just for FYI, there is a work session, 2 work sessions of the board related to both of those topics, advanced learning and student assignment transition plan and boundaries, on September 25th. And work sessions are here. They are public, but they don't have testimony provided. We don't have public testimony at those meetings. And also brief update on legislative work that we are starting to talk about, our legislative agenda for the Seattle School District. Additionally, WASDA is having their legislative assembly. Both Jill and I plan to be there. That's in a couple weeks on the 26th of September. And so we'll be moving forward on those things. Oh, it'll be coming, our legislative agenda will be coming through the executive committee in the October meeting. So if you're interested in that, that's where it'll be. Thanks.
Director Geary, please.
Okay, CNI's next meeting will be on September 10th, 4:30 to 6:30. A lot of the same things that we're still trying to finalize from last spring we're going to be looking at a board action report around the selection and adoption of instructional materials policy 2015. Yay, it's been a long time coming. I'm going to give a lot of thanks to Director Burke for his continued input and work, and to former Chief Kyle Kinoshita, who up until his very last day here helped to work on that policy, and of course current Chief Diane DeBacker. So it's been definitely a group effort to try and address many of the holes perhaps that we saw in our last adoption process, so that our next one will go more smoothly and everybody will feel that they participated and ultimately ruled upon a process that they believe in. So I hope that everybody will take a look at that closely and provide us their feedback any last minute, but it's coming for a vote. So hopefully that will be smooth sailing. Special attention items for the meeting will be the summer staircase report. As Director Mack indicated, the advanced learning update, and there's been a year and a half of hard work from the advanced learning task force around the recommendations that are being put forth, and so there's a lot of good information online to be presented in committee, and this is going to be something that is going to start being, we're going to start taking those, hopefully taking those recommendations and seeing them put into action in our district in respect for all the work that has gone into that very important issue. I have presented a draft of the anti-racism policy to Keisha Scarlett, and so at this point, don't want to make it public until we get some input from our expert, but that is also moving forward, and so I look forward to getting a draft that can be presented to everybody and get input on that. Our standing agenda items, the strategic plan priority, high quality instruction learning experiences, will be talking about third grade reading levels and on-track graduation and college and career readiness. I did note that yesterday on KUOW that it was mentioned that that is part of our new strategic plan, but they seem to think that we weren't clear on our strategies on how to get there. So I hope that we as a district will put forth quickly to the media the strategies that I do know we have with regard to meeting our goal, because we need to be, as President Harris would say, loud and proud about the work that we're doing on our strategic plan. We'll be talking about graduation, college and career readiness, and then the instructional material updates will be the science instructional material adoption, how that is going forward. We're moving forward on ethnic studies and since time immemorial. And I know it feels like we keep saying the same thing over and over, but in order to do something well, we need to do it carefully, and they are moving forward. So hopefully we'll see those implemented in our schools. So I welcome anybody to come, listen, and provide feedback to the board through email as you see fit. Thanks.
Okay, the next exec committee meeting will be a week from today, September 11. Those are from 8 to 10, and at 10 o'clock, everybody gets up and leaves. We'll be talking about our SEA, collective bargaining agreement that will be coming back. We'll be talking about compensation for non-represented staff. We'll be talking about these happy legislative meetings, the timing of them, whether or not we reserve spaces for our 20 speakers for particular topics, how we identify student comments, and whether or not we ask our students to declare that they are their comments, not someone else's written comments, that they have been assigned to speak of, and to address timing so that we don't have this big gap between when we start at 4:15, then we take a very long break, and we start our public testimony at 5:30 and try to give some balance to the difficulties of getting to the John Stanford Center at 4:15 in the afternoon, and given our happy construction out front, etc. and also to the folks that have worked here all day, and we don't want to keep them here till midnight. So lots of balancing to be done, and then our usual updates regarding community engagement, governmental relations, strategic plan, executive committee work plans, et cetera. And this becomes all the more important as we run into the transition period of the next board that will be seated in December 2019. So, of interest, and again, in committees is where most of the mixing of the recipes is done. By the time it gets to the dais, many hands have touched it, and thoughtful, robust communication, sometimes rowdy, is had. So very much encourage your attendance at any community committee meeting. And it's fascinating process if you appreciate public policy. We do not have a student to give us comments this evening. So now we move to Roman 6, Business Action Items A, Consent Agenda. May I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Approval of the consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Do directors have any items they would like to remove from the consent agenda? This is just a simple request, not debatable. Director Pinkham.
Yes, I for one, actually, given that one of them was saying it's updated since introduction, I would like to hopefully that we can share those updates. Number 6, BEX 5, and distress school grant approval for actually the Westwood Modernization Addition project, and then down below it says updated since introduction. I think it'd be good for us to share those updates rather than be on the consent agenda. And then we do have some commenters, public testimony, item number 4, the Loyal Heights Elementary School Modernization Project. But the other ones, I'm not sure how to approach this because they just say school construction, modernization, and addition projects, and that can include just about all that's on the consent agenda from items number 4 through 7.
Would it assist you in making a choice to remove from the consent agenda to hear from Chief Podesta?
Yes, I assume so. So right now, I would say items 4 and 6, but then I'm concerned about speaker number 2.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Chief Podesta, but I think that a few words might help us here.
Four and 6, but I was talking about speaker number 2. It just says schools construction, modernization, and addition projects. And then all these are modernization and addition projects that are listed in the consent.
I don't know that he can determine the intent of something so broad from a speaker.
Yeah, and so
So-
right now, I'm just requesting number 4 and 6. If that may be enough, again, I don't know what the speaker is going to address.
Modified since introduction. We did talk about it, the commissioning report, and maybe that, and that's, I think, something the speaker wants to speak about. So
Okay.
I don't know what to say about that, and I have to confess, the revision to item 6 since introduction escapes me, and I don't see it on the bar.
Well, you've got time then, because
Yeah,
it's just
so,
been moved.
yeah, if it's been moved, we'll talk about it then, and I'll try to chase that down.
Okay, can I have a motion for the consent agenda as amended with numbers 4 and 6 pulled off?
Move approval of consent agenda, less items 4 and 6.
Second.
All those in favor of the amended consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That has been moved and passed. Number 4 and 6 will be inserted at C. And again, my colleagues, I'm sure, will remind me if I forget. Okay. So time check here, it is 4:40. Public testimony starts at 5:30. Let's go ahead and have our board director reports, please. Who would like to go first? Director Mack.
I think I had my coffee today. Normally, I'm not quite ready, but, well, actually, I'm just really excited about the start of school, and it feels like it went really, really well. My own kiddos' buses were on time, and kids were happy, and yay, everybody's back to school. So, a very exciting day. I have put in requests for meetings for community meetings, meeting rooms for my community meetings. One in a couple weeks and one in October. I hadn't scheduled them for a long time. I have to wait to find out if I actually get the rooms before I post it, but those will be forthcoming. I have a Facebook page that you can search, and I'll post there. It'll also be on the board's website once I get it locked down. And I just wanted to, again, thank everyone involved in the 4 buildings we opened. Those ribbon cuttings were really amazing. It was really wonderful to be a part of that. See all of the alumni that came back for Lincoln. That building is just amazingly renovated. It's wonderful. So thank you again for everyone, and hopefully you get to take a look at the pictures if you weren't present for the ribbon cuttings. And that's all I have. Happy start of school.
Next up is Director Burke.
With short time between meetings, there's also short comments. So I want to begin by celebrating the Lincoln Lynx. Yay. Not wearing a jacket today, not wearing a tie, just going with the sweatshirt, going kind of throwback. So that was, I've had the sweatshirt for a while and don't get to wear it very much, and I really wanted to celebrate that. So 2 ribbon cuttings, Magnolia last Thursday, Lincoln yesterday. Both buildings are absolutely amazing. They're gorgeous. They include a historical component. I was actually walking through Magnolia and I was thinking, this smells like the intersection of old house and new building. And it just made me smile because I'm kind of an old house person, but also love new. So I want to shout out to our artists and craftsmen that have made those projects possible. We are grateful for everyone throughout the system, from our community through our educators and students that fill the halls, but the people that use their hands and turn raw materials into those masterpieces are such to be commended. And I'm excited for our work around the Student and Community Workforce Agreement to find more ways that we can put our students in those environments and helping with those experiences. I want to thank Superintendent Juneau for, in your report, I hadn't realized some of the outreach you had done. I just want to say thanks for connecting with the Nutrition Services team, because I think the intersection of the adult relationships and sharing meals is something that can't be underestimated. So I really appreciate you making that direct leadership connection with them. Start of schools, just based on the indicators in my email inbox, this has been, since starting my term, the, knock on wood, most uneventful, cleanest, fewest bumps start of schools. And so I want to celebrate that publicly, from the leadership all the way through the system. Families, community, it's a big lift. And I look forward to hearing what Director Mack had spoken about, the quantitative data about start of school coming up at a work session. We had a wonderful meeting actually earlier today that Director Mack and I had with district staff around the Advanced Learning Task Force and their preliminary results, or preliminary recommendations. And And I think that for any of my colleagues that have the opportunity to meet, I highly recommend that. This is a lead-in to our September 25th work session on next steps and policy conversations. And I think that it was a really rich discussion about how we serve our advanced learners in their attendance area schools, but also how do we not disrupt the experiences that they're having now in the existing system. And there's a lot of challenge, a lot of potential polarity around there. And those conversations are going to take all of us really leaning in on them. So keep your eyes on that one. And in closing, heads up about an exciting event that's in the planning stages with the SPS team. This sort of speaks to what you had inquired about. What is the I'm not sure how you phrased it, but the specificity around our strategies for college and career readiness. This is a subset of that, a Career Connected Learning Partnership Summit. Many of us have been to events that have been hosted by other organizations around career and technical experiences or worksite learning experiences that are being championed, or the heavy lift is being carried by our partners, and we're grateful for that. A huge amount of work is also happening here in the district to build those into common systems. And this is our opportunity to celebrate that, to invite partners, collaborators, educators, to hear about the common goals between our K-12 system and what's in post-secondary, and to talk about our strategies and initiatives multi-year to get more student experiences in CTE and in worksite learning. And to really specifically ask our partners outside the district to help us lift those students, put them to work in summer jobs, help us fund programs, offer volunteer staff to help our existing programs sustain, provide material supplies and operating either funding or donations of materials. So there's a lot of different places that the district has intentionally built into its outreach strategies so that multiple different organizations can find a way to connect. I think probably all of you as directors and many of you in the public have had that experience of the question, how can I help? And the answer is, I'm not quite sure. And so one of the focus areas of this summit is to figure out, let's answer that question. This is how you can help. Sign up here and help our students and help our systems. So I'm super excited about that. Likely end of October, still working out exact dates, locations, more information as that becomes available. And then in closing, just to restate, my meetings for the rest of my director term have been set now. September 14th, Fremont Library, 3 to 5 p.m. October 12th, Greenwood Library, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And November 9th, Greenwood Library, 3 to 5 p.m. And other directors, as well as staff, and obviously the public community are welcome at any and all of those. Thank you.
Next up is Director DeWolf.
Thank you, President Harris. I also want to make sure, just first as a citizen of the Chippewa Cree Nation of Rockville, Montana, just to illustrate that I am grateful to live and serve here in a city that is the ancestral homeland of the Duwamish people, the Muckleshoot Nation, and the Suquamish Nation. We acknowledge them as custodians of this land since time immemorial, and as guests, and for many of the folks here, as settlers on this land, we extend our deepest gratitude and respect to their ancestors and elders past, present, and future. I also want to just extend some gratitude to the community and SPS for working to bring a resolution to Bailey Gatzert. I'm excited that our conversations and community meetings this summer yielded positive results for the students, families, and the whole Gatzert and, yes, our community. And also really excited for Dr. Bruno Cross as the permanent school leader at Seattle World School. I know that community has been yearning for a permanent leader, and so really grateful that Dr. Bruno Cross was selected, and really excited for his leadership there. As you know, we did have a very busy summer. As kids were out for the summer, we were still busy in our D7 appointment process, and so I'm looking forward to next week's final community meeting here on Wednesday to do our community forum for the remaining 3 candidates to succeed Betty Patu. Thank you, at Rainier Beach. And then also just wanted to elevate the great work from last school year on our student and community workforce agreements. Applications for the task force are due by this Friday at 6 p.m. This Friday, September 6th by 5 p.m. And so I look forward to seeing who's looking forward to working with us on the student and community workforce agreements here at Seattle Public Schools. I am currently working on school visits for the 2019-2020 school year, so we'll have some more updates as we get to go visit our schools in District 5. And the last thing, just want to make sure we elevate, particularly as we head into a new school year, students and community, particularly in our emails and other places, have been continuing to advocate that we prioritize the completion of Policy 2015, which is our vehicle for bringing ethnic studies to Seattle Public Schools. So I hope we begin moving on this critical piece of the puzzle. And then lastly, just wanted to read a story by one of our students from Nathan Hale High School. Her name is Rachel Schmidt, however you say it, and it's called Speak Now. And it goes like this. My words are too much for your flimsy rules, too much for your confining boxes. My words spill out of my mouth, keeping up with my Amtrak of a brain. My words speaks truth to me, of me, for me, not for you to judge or critique, for I spent so long with my mouth shut, silent, keeping my thoughts contained in the box society made, but I can't do it anymore. So you see, saying, Rachel, be quiet, means nothing to me. I have the right to speak my mind, for you do not know what I've been through, the thoughts and emotions, life I had hidden away, snatching the days I should have used to go to carnivals and daydream on hills, the years I lost to my disease, never saying what needed to come out of this mouth, this big mouth. My mom telling me to be quiet in church, for the preacher has given me words. No, I won't be quiet anymore. I deserve for you to hear me speak. Not for your benefit, but for the respect of my words. No, the appreciation of my words. No, the wild wind in your hair that is the words coming out of this mouth. I need you to hear me, this time. In the midst of mania and out the other side, hear me speak. Then, only then, will I listen to you. And again, this was Rachel Schmidt from Nathan Hale High School.
Director Geary.
Welcome back, everybody, to our new school year. I'm excited to sit here for the final 3 months of my term. It's hard to contemplate, and every board meeting is going to be a reminder that it's one of my last. So I'm just going to be really centered on what an honor it is and really appreciate these last 3 months. Had a great summer. Took time off, really looking forward to seeing how we move forward on our strategic plan. Really hoping that we share that news across our district and into every building and into every person who continues, to the extent that I feel that the work is not being understood in our city as fully as it can, to the extent that I hear people talk about our district and I feel they're talking about a district that I don't recognize, I think it's important that we all try and get out there and tell the world about the work that we're doing to focus on our students farthest from educational justice. And so whether I sit on this board or afterwards, I'm going to continue to do that. I'm excited. I did mention the anti-racism policy, and I'm excited about that. I'm excited to have something to focus on. And it seems strange to have so little time and be bringing something so big. But on the other hand, it took that long to understand what we're doing and for us as a district to be even ready to have that conversation, I think. And it's going to be a beautiful dovetail to 0030 and our strategic plan. And it's going to make us even focus in more closely in terms of how our systems may be tripping us up in spite of ourselves. And so hopefully we will put in place processes by which we can really inspect them once they are identified, be it structural, institutional, or personal racism, so that we can hold ourselves accountable to the work that we have said that we want to do. Because it's really hard work. Much easier to put on paper, much harder to address when barriers are exposed. So I invite everybody as we move forward in that process to share their thoughts and feelings about that. So that's going to be my focus, I think, for the last few months that I'm here. That and moving forward on the advanced learning task force. And I want to share some history around that because it was sitting at one of the meetings, one of our work sessions, where the question was once again raised, what's happening to advanced learning? And that was early in our tenure. And it was really clear to me, even after a few months, that given the amount of community input that is necessary, the care, the thoughtfulness, getting voices, making sure that we're getting voices from all the different corners, that it wasn't going to be something that this board was going to do from the dais on our own. And so I have to say that I'm really proud that once it was identified that that was a really, really big body of work that needed to happen and didn't necessarily align, or it wasn't so obvious at the time how it aligned with some of the equity work that we were trying to do. And yet, I think many of us in our guts realized that there was a huge intersection and that until we addressed that advanced learning, we were going to continue to come up against a stumbling block in our conversations and how our district operated. And so we did that. We allowed a task force to be put into place and do its work very carefully over a year and a half, and that's an immense amount of work and time. And so I just give that history because it was identified as something that had to happen. People wanted something to happen right then and there. And we recognize that that's not how anything that happened under that system would not take. And we allowed this to happen, and we've had our input on the Advanced Learning Task Force over many, many months. And so that's another piece that I'm very proud of and hope to see come to fruition before we, who started that process, find ourselves off this board. So I share that. I will continue to have my Tuesday morning coffee meetings at Zoka, the one on Blakely behind the University Village from 8 to 9:30. This month I will be able to do 2 of them, one on September 10th and one on September 24th. Should I have to cancel for personal reasons, I will post that on Facebook, and I will also post events for those on Facebook. There's usually a pretty good crowd of people these days, and really great conversations around education. So I invite everybody to come, sit down. I hold mine on Tuesday mornings for those who don't have availability on the weekends. It's the one time during the week, pretty regularly, that you can have access to a school board member. So again, welcome to the new school year.
Director Pinkham, you're up.
All right, Katsiayon, Tatskalot. I guess first off, just welcome everyone back to school. Hope the high schools and middle school, elementary, except for kindergarten, right? Kindergarten start next week, that they had a good start to their school year. I was with my daughter yesterday as we had the orientation for the Nathan Hale. So she's now a Nathan Hale Raider. And is ready to start playing basketball is what she wants to play. So again, good, best luck to everyone. Good job to the transportation that we saw that, wow, 1%, only 7 buses. Yeah, that was morning. Had 6, but still for us to see that on the first day of school, I think is just amazing, that we're making that kind of an improvement and getting the students on school on time. Because I think as one of our people have said that if we can't get our kids at school on time, that's the first and foremost. We need our kids in school learning. So thank you to the transportation departments, because I think that success is on you. And unfortunately, you also got to look at when things don't work well. We will be looking at. So, but first, congratulations. Also, congratulations to the new schools that started. Rick now has his high school in his district ready and rolling and showing the paraphernalia off. Yeah. All right, cool. And I wish I could have made it out to some of the ribbon cuttings, but sorry I wasn't able to make it. But congratulations to those schools as well. Also, the Urban Education Alliance is kind of doing their annual Billy Mills event, and this will be on Sunday. September 8th from 2 to 4 at Green Lake. Good chance for people who want to go out there. Billy hasn't been running the last few years because he's still kind of recovering, but man, he just looks fantastic. He probably could, from 2 to 4, Green Lake, they meet up just right outside the community center. That's at Green Lake. And they have a fun run walk with them, so just one trip around the Green Lake, and those that run, those that rather just take their time walk. But it's just a good time for community. They plan to hand out some school supplies as well to our new returning school students, so I encourage people to come out there. I can't make it. I got a wedding to attend to this weekend on the other side of the mountains. Also want to acknowledge Nancy Bob. She was actually here prior to her starting. She's the one that helped with the sign that we see behind us, and that's going up at international schools. And I told her one goal is hopefully get this sign up at all schools, all 100 of our schools, so we do acknowledge that, you know, what land we're on. And I do appreciate that we're saying that. And I go to other meetings now. I'm starting to hear it more often, that people will start their meetings acknowledging, you know, the land of the Duwamish, Suquamish, or wherever they may be, that this is becoming almost common rhetoric that we're hearing. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that Seattle School Public Schools does this as well, so thank you for doing that. I still have to schedule my community events, but once I do, we'll get them posted as soon as possible. I will have one sometime in September and definitely October and November. And I am going to try to make it out to at least some of Rick's meetings as well, since we're so close together, and some of Jill's, but then I can't make 7:30 coffees, so. 9:30. And definitely some of President Harris's as well. Actually, maybe that should be a goal of mine, to make every one of my fellow board members' community meetings at least one
You're
of them
welcome
before
to
this
mine
ends.
as well.
All right. Lasagna?
No.
Oh. But that's all I have. Kasia, thank you, and everyone, welcome back to school.
Okay. This meeting is truly about gratitude. And first of all, thanks to my colleagues sitting up here. I might not agree with you, but I love you to death. Community meetings. September 28th, 3 to 5, Southwest Branch Library. October 19th, High Point Library, 3 to 5. November 16th, Delridge Library, 3 to 5. In September, you have a 1 out of 2 chance of getting lasagna, and if I don't get there in September, you're eating lasagna in October, and all are welcome. We are rowdy, we are thoughtful, and we welcome you. Thanks to the good folks working in this building and all 104. We have agreed now that 104 is standard language. Okay. No more guessing. 104. So says the superintendent. An incredible amount of work has been done over the summer. I think that folks have a misimpression that the lights are dark here, and that's absolutely not the case. And to see our 4 rehab buildings, to have start of schools this morning, Superintendent Janot and I and the mayor and the police chief and council member Herbold and Seattle Housing Authority Director Andrew Lofton welcomed our students at West Seattle Elementary, and there was a pony to boot and a DJ, and it was a huge celebration, and it made me feel ever so hopeful for the year. Then I went up to see Lunch Lady Dory at Denny International Middle School, and I was promised a cookie. And Aaron, hear me clearly, it was not a home-baked cookie, it was a cookie out of a freezer in a plastic wrapper. And that woman can make incredibly good cookies. So as soon as we can bring back scratch baking and the smell of cookies in our cafeterias, I will be forever grateful. And I'll get my food handler's permit so I can help bake them. A huge thanks to our Seattle Education Association members who voted on this contract, who negotiated since May, and a huge thanks to our Seattle Public Schools staff who also lost their summer and put in probably several hundred hours working to an agreement that we can live with. Now, it does take down our rainy day funds, so if you come calling, bring money with you, because a couple of years from now, it's gonna hurt like heck. And I don't frankly expect a whole lot of help from the legislature. But if you know any legislators, let them know we're coming, because we are not funding the way we need to and in this world-class city. And to Director Burke's comment that we have extraordinary partners in this city, in this world-class city, let's do a full court press for folks to open up their checkbooks, because they'll be hiring our graduates, and they need our graduates to be ready to go. And a huge thanks to everyone around, and notice I didn't say up and down the food chain, because I don't believe in an up and down food chain. Thank you to the crossing guards, to the cement mixers, to our teachers, to our senior staff, to our instructional assistants, to our administrative assistants. We can't do it without everybody pulling the same direction on these oars, and our work is too important not to be working as a team. Couple of other comments. No doubt folks have listened and read about the 20-minute lunch times that the state auditor's office has tagged, and as the superintendent of public instruction has tagged. We made a lot of progress a couple of years ago. It'll be interesting to see where we stand on that. And that's, again, one of those individual 104 buildings, leadership principles, large and in charge, and trying to do best practices. If they don't eat, they can't learn. If they don't eat healthy, they can't learn. The Advanced Learning Task Force recommendations are attached to the Friday memo. I encourage you to look them up and start giving us your input. And a special thanks to Chief Podesta, who listened to the requests and pleas from the West Seattle community, who was grandfathered in on highly capable. And we got us a school bus, and it's hugely appreciated. And Fred, you're reaching out and answering emails to constituents. I bow down. Thank you. That's the kind of sensitivity, and as Superintendent Nyland used to say, fly to the ball, that is hugely appreciated. Again, it's an honor. It's a privilege. We've got great work to do. When we leave the house, at our house, we say carpe diem, which is supposed to mean seize the day. We yell and say, seize the fish. I love you. We're taking a break until 5:30, until public testimony. And there will be no more breaks, because we're going to get out of here early tonight. We are back on the record. It is 5:30. It is time for public testimony. The rules for public testimony are on the screen, and I would ask the speakers to be respectful of these rules. I am not going to read them all out, but I would remind you that comments directed by name, personnel, are out of order. Please don't make me rule you out of order. Madam, please read the next three folks, 2 minutes each. When you get to 30 seconds, the yellow light will come on. Please start wrapping up your comments. Thank you.
First up for public testimony, we have Chris Jackins, followed by Eliza Rankin, and then Robin Landy Amadon.
My name is Chris Jackins, Box 84063, Seattle 98124. On the National Science Foundation grant, 2 points. Number one, the board report has gone from 6 pages to 8 pages since last week, adding 4 principles, including changing the culture of science. Number two, multiple board members at the last meeting expressed concern that earlier information should have been provided. Please delay this item to allow the board to do its due diligence. On the Loyal Heights Commissioning Report, 5 points. Number one, the report states, quote, the emergency shutdown button in the boiler room is reversed. The boiler was enabled to run when the button was pushed in, unquote. This sounds like a good thing to have gotten fixed. Number two, a circulation pump is still noisy. Number three, is it true that classrooms have gotten smaller because space was allocated to teacher collaboration rooms? Number four, the playground size has been dramatically reduced. How is this affecting school recesses? Number five, the district is required on many projects to not use schools in ways that would create or aggravate racial imbalance. Please discuss this issue. On the proposed SEA contract, 3 points. Number one, a report on the contract states that the agreement includes mandatory professional development for principals on the topic of educator diversity. Number two, such a condition would affect employees who are represented by a separate union, PASS, the principal's bargaining unit. Number three, imposing such a condition would appear to be illegal. Thank you.
Hi, happy first day of the school year. I'm a parent of 2 SBS students in the far northeast corner of Seattle Public Schools. My kids don't tell me anything, but they seemed pretty happy at the end of the day, so I think they had a good first day. My oldest son is a 5th grader, so we're pretty used to that controlled chaos that happens on the first day. We don't attend one of the beautiful new buildings I've been seeing in photos from ribbon cuttings over the past week, but we have a sweet little mid-century school with a warm patina that can only happen with 60 or so years of use from thousands and thousands of elementary school students. At Rising Star Elementary, though, formerly Van Asselt, students were welcomed today into a construction site, and they'll be attending school in a work zone for months. I have photos that I'm happy to email to you. Students at Rising Star are over 95% students of color, 19% students with disabilities, and 83% low income. These are the students that are centered in the district's new strategic plan. They're furthest from educational justice. Families were told that work taking place would be finished over the summer and wouldn't affect school this year, but construction now is displacing 5th grade classrooms, special education and ELL students, and there will be ongoing noise and dust that will disrupt everyone in the building. I'm told that there was unexpected damage found in the roof that's delayed the work, but it seems as though the students and staff are the ones paying the biggest price without ample support or communication from the district. Special education students are crowded into rooms meant for half as many students. IAs have lost their office space. The principal, the AP, and administrative staff are in the copy room so that special education can have de-escalation spaces in what used to be their offices. Staff is doing the best that they can, but they're already maxed out and stressed, and it's only the first day of school. Please provide a community meeting with Seattle Public Schools officials, paid interpreters to answer family questions, and share a timeline and a plan to let them know that their students' learnings won't be totally derailed. Please also provide monthly updates to the community until the project is completed. They'll understand the inconvenience, but they just need and deserve to be supported and included and informed about what's going on. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Robin Amadon, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the Low Income Housing Institute to take this opportunity to introduce to you all a proposed new affordable housing development in D5 in the Aurora-Licton Springs community. And we hope to have the opportunity to create partnerships with the Seattle Public School System. Our development site at 86th and Aurora is proximate to several great SPS schools, and we'd like to invite the school district to inform us of collaborations and partnerships, kinds of services that our family support case manager at our building might be able to offer toward the goal of school success. We will be breaking ground, if we get the funding in line, in June of 2021 and opening in August of 2022. Our Lake City development, the Tony Lee Apartments, had tremendous support from phenomenal people in the Lake City schools, and we'd like to repeat that in the Licton Springs community. We anticipate also that these units might speak to the housing needs of administrative staff, custodial people, teachers' aides, perhaps new teachers joining your school system. Our rents estimated sit quite a bit below market, and we really are endeavoring to do community outreach locally and institute a community preference to help families avoid displacement and economic dislocation. I anticipate with the unit mix that we will probably be adding about 55 school-age children to the community, and we'd like to do our part to support everything that you and your employees do each and every day. Thank you.
Lastly, we have Christopher Luburn.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm here speaking about minorities in the HCC program. The HCC program has been an absolute blessing for my son Alex. In kindergarten, he was sent to the principal's office almost daily. He wasn't learning, and he was hindering the teacher's ability to serve the rest of the class. The neighborhood school was simply not equipped to meet his needs. My understanding of the concern of the HCC program is the racial bias. In my experience, the program is not racially biased at all. The access might be racially biased, but the program itself is not. Don't confuse them, please. If the HCC program were discontinued, it would harm more minorities than it would help. Let me make 2 points. First, as a minority boy, the social and behavioral issues that would have to be addressed if he were to return to his neighborhood school would be met with more punishment, isolation, and medical recommendations than his non-minority peers would receive. Second, the families of means will just send their kids to private schools if the HCC program were discontinued, and the kids from families without the means to send their kids to a private school would be left to fend for themselves. I know this because I've talked to many of the parents. In conclusion, please don't discontinue the HCC program. If you do, it will disproportionately harm the minority children in the program. You spoke about gratitude earlier. I am very grateful that I live in a place that has this program that allows my son to achieve academically and, more importantly, socially and emotionally become the person that he can be. Thank you.
This concludes the public testimony list.
Excuse me, if there are anybody else here that wishes to testify, please check in as soon as you can, and you have your opportunity for your 2 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name's Elaine Haskell and I'm a proud parent of 3 here at Seattle Public School. Sorry for my lateness, I was just notified of this public testify and I felt so passionate about the subject that I wanted to leave work and just come here and express my experience. I have 3 children, 2 in Fairmont Park, 1 at Lafayette Elementary. They're all under 10, so I'm a very busy household. However, so 2 of my daughters are HCC identified, and it was unbeknownst to me what HCC even meant when we first stumbled upon it 5 years ago. However, the experience she's had in this program has been exceptional. When she first started kindergarten, my bright, smart, amazing little girl had a behavioral change. She isolated herself a lot from her peers. She was so terrified of public speaking or any sort of social interactions. She started to revert to having accidents in her pants. It was very difficult for me trying to understand, why there was so much anxiety. And then the second behavioral issue occurred when she started bullying another little girl. And I thought, how can my sweet little baby do something like this? Was it something in my parenting? Was it our environment? What was it? So for me, it was a difficult time trying to understand, trying to work with her, and trying to talk with her. And she was tested later that year and identified as an HCC, and I didn't even know what that means. And I had to do some research, and that if we were to accept the HCC program, we would have to move to a different school that was outside of our neighborhood, which we were hesitant to do because she had just gotten used to all her peers and the kindergarten teachers and everything. But because of the behavioral issues that we experienced, we thought maybe she needed a different type of support. Maybe she needed a place where she felt like it was more for her. Did I go over my time? Okay. So bottom line is, I'm thankful for HCC. It allowed her to be more confident now, and she's so happy, and she's really, had a dramatic change in her behavior. And so I wish this for every parent, and I think there are a lot of kids out there that could use this support. And if you were to take this away, I don't know where I would turn to, because it's not, I don't know where I would go, because it's not like she's deficient in any aspects of her.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, we usually do a second round of board comments, should folks wish to comment on the public testimony. Any takers? Director Mack.
First, I want to thank you for advocating on the Rising Star School and the need for some community engagement. I think that has been heard. I don't know what is actually been going on, but I appreciate that testimony, and I want to echo it back to staff too. I know that they are working closely with the principal, but the additional community engagement would likely be very helpful. It is a tragedy that situation is going on right now, and I'm glad that they're trying to work through it, and look forward to that project being finished and making it through. But thank you for that. Also, I really want to thank you for bringing forward the Nesbitt Family Housing Project to our attention, raising it in our consciousness that this is coming down the line. As chair of the operations committee, a lot of the work that comes through is the planning around boundaries and student assignment and all of that kind of stuff. And when we have additional housing being built, we need to consider that in those planning. So I appreciate that you're coming forward with it, and that I'd like to connect you to Mr. Podesta in the back to make some connections with the district so you can get tied into the planning work that's going on from that standpoint. So I really appreciate that. And thank you for coming forward and giving your perspectives on your experience in the highly capable cohort.
Anyone else? Seeing none, we move to action items. We are taking first number 4 from the consent agenda, BEX 4, Resolution 2019-20-5, acceptance of the building commissioning report for the Loyal Heights Elementary School Modernization and Addition Project. This came before OPS August 15th for consideration. Motion, please.
I move that the school board adopt Resolution 2019/20-5, accepting the building commissioning report for the Loyal Heights Elementary School project.
Second?
Second.
Yes.
Just opening up the file.
Chief Podesta, take it away.
As we talked about at introduction, a commissioning report is a third-party quality assurance assessment done on our building systems. When this action was introduced, 170 of the 171 items in the report had already been resolved. So the things on this list are things that the commissioning agent found and worked with the team to resolve. There was a gas meter that needed to be dealt with, and that was taken care of in August. So this work is done. This really ties a bow around the building systems, and so I think we're ready to move on, unless there are specific questions about the report.
Comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? Director Pinkham, you're the one that moved this off consent? Have at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess what was brought up in public comment, I think some things seem straightforward, but when the emergency shutdown button is the opposite of what it's supposed to be, glad it was fixed. Also, I guess was brought up in public testimony, the circulation pump. Do you know if that will, the noise generated from that, will that be addressed, or is it planned to see how we can maybe soundproof the room, or?
I believe it has been addressed already. I will confirm, but again, if it was on the report, it's been resolved.
Other comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? And I've got chops, but I'm not going to bring up a noisy pump to you in a legislative meeting, ever. Roll call, please.
Director Burke,
Aye.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Geary,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Pinkham,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
We are moving to number 6 from the consent agenda, BEX 5 and Distress School Grant. Approval of 4 actions related to the West Woodland Modernization and Addition Project. This came before OPS August 15th for approval. Motion, please.
Okay, take a deep breath. I move that the school board, A, authorize the superintendent to execute A/E contract K1352 with McGranahan Architects in the amount of $1,613,228 plus reimbursable expenses not to exceed $25,000 for architectural and engineering services for the West Woodland Elementary School renovation and addition project, with any minor additions, deletions, and modifications deemed necessary by the superintendent, and to take any necessary actions to implement the contract. And B, authorize the superintendent to accept and obligate 2017 distressed school grant funds in the amount of $6 million for the West Woodland Elementary School renovation and addition project budget. And C, approve a one-time fund transfer of $2,500,000 from the K3 class size reduction grant to the West Woodland Elementary School renovation and addition project. And D, approve a one-time fund transfer of $2,600,000 from the BEX 5 program contingency to the West Woodland Elementary renovation and addition project.
Take it away, Chief
Thank you.
Podesta.
And I apologize for not being ready to speak to this.
Up, excuse me, second.
Second.
There we go.
Oops, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
I apologize for not recalling the revisions when you asked earlier. These revisions were responsive to questions from the board at introduction, just about points in the bar. Asked us to clarify the total project budget to make sure that the action was clear about that, what that was. And then there was a concern about, well, we're transferring money from the K3 class reduction grant, and that's appropriate because that's what the money is going to be used for, just transferring it into the budget, the project budget, so it can be expended for its stated purpose. And so we added a lot of this is assembling money to fund a project, and that's what we just clarified those points.
Comments, questions, concerns, Director Pinkham.
Yeah, I guess since I was the one that pulled this, I just, again, wanted to make sure, since there's an update for this consent agenda item, that it was highlighted.
No, and I
Thank you.
appreciate that. I was just looking at the old bar when you called me up before, which of course wasn't going to have the revisions, but.
Director Mack? Roll call, please.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Geary, Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Pinkham,
Aye.
Director Burke,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Okay, C1, action items. Number 1, approval of grant from Amazon Future Engineer to support science, technology, engineering, and math STEM education activities came before A&F August 19th for.
Approval.
Motion, please.
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to accept the grant from the Amazon Future Engineer Program in an amount not to exceed $300,000.
Second.
Chief DeBacker, take it away.
There are no changes to this bar other than the clarification that Scott Pinkham asked last week about which the other 3 schools. Those 3 schools are still discussing this and considering it. That would be Maple, Rainier Valley, Aki, and now the World School as well. So we still have 3 slots open. Rainier View. No, yeah.
Comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? Director Pinkham? Director DeWolf, please.
Thank you, President Harris. I just want to elevate something. I did some research, particularly found some concerning information, particularly as we think about the Seattle World School, from the MIT Technology Review. And it's entitled, Amazon is the Invisible Backbone of ISIS Immigration Crackdown. And I think what is concerning to me, particularly as we consider the more than 350 students at Seattle World School, representing more than 30 countries and 38 languages. Just want to read a few things that at least were concerning for me from an investigation. I guess it was created by The Intercept in partnership with Mihente, the National Immigration Project, and the Immigration Defense Project. So, this report found that Amazon has played as central a role as Palantir in providing the backbone infrastructure for many of ICE's and DHS's key programs. It has enjoyed a cozy relationship with the federal government, particularly in a time where we've seen an increased enforcement of immigration. I think what is really concerning to me is that all of the data that the algorithms powering the ICM, which is run by Palantir, are now being migrated to the Amazon Web Services in their entirety. And this, to me, is one of the reasons I will not be voting for this, particularly, again, in respect for our students at Seattle World School, but all of our immigrant refugee students in Seattle Public Schools.
Director DeWolf, can you give us, please, a citation for that article?
I would be happy to send that to you. I don't see it on this page, but I will, yes, I can give you the citation.
Thank you.
It's MIT Technology Review. The title is Amazon as the Invisible Backbone of ISIS Immigration Crackdown. I'll get the citation.
And Chief Counsel Narver, when we get that citation, can we add that to the record? Yes, please. Come on up.
Yes, we could, I think there's been an adequate cite to that. I'm sure we can add the technical cite without further board action, get that in the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Other comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? Director Mack, please.
I think in light of the article just raised, I'm curious to what extent Amazon is actually engaging or just donating the funds in this program. Do they actually have any hands-on connection to the running of the FIRST Robotics program?
They have, with the FIRST Robotics program and with the Future Engineer program, they do have mentors that come in and work with the students in those after-school programs.
Comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? Seeing none, I will bite, and I agree with Director DeWolf that some of the infrastructure in this country, as it addresses our folks of need, our folks of color, and some of the deplorable shenanigans out of Washington, D.C. Are extraordinarily troubling. I would suggest to you that there are a great many other technology companies that are also embedded, deeply embedded and intertwined in the so-called security industry that are deplorable and probably no, not probably, definitely immoral. On the other hand, my duty, sitting here for me, and I only speak for myself, is to our 53,000 students. Amazon is well aware of my concern about what has happened to our city, given their presence, and I have to balance the greater good for our students as opposed to a national security and other very ugly actions by both Amazon and a great many other technology companies. And having First Washington partnering with us is a very exciting concept to me for our students' greater good. I will be voting in favor of this resolution. Director Geary and then Director Burke.
So in reviewing the article, it appears to me that the connection seems to be that the agencies purchased the cloud service offered by Amazon and could have, I suppose, purchased the cloud services offered by Microsoft or somebody else. These are government agencies. They are our federal government, which I think on some level, while I don't currently agree with the actions of our federal government, I would prefer that our federal government be using cloud services that are American companies over cloud services that were not. And that until we, if and when we decide as an agency that we're going to restrict our engagement with companies that are engaging with federal parts of the federal government that we don't agree with to provide infrastructure services before we will engage with them ourselves. It seems to me that we need to be consistent because, again, this is the type of thing that if we're going to be doing it based upon cloud services being offered to federal agencies that are engaging in practices that one or several of us may find, given any particular branch, we don't agree with what they're doing, we're going down a rabbit hole of inconsistency. It seems that the big issue is that our federal government has bought cloud services from Amazon. And I'm not prepared at this point to start picking and choosing which of those huge entities, be it Microsoft, be it Amazon, that we're not going to accept services from and backtrack. I mean, how many other places are we accepting things from Amazon that are completely unrelated to their cloud services, that in order for us not to appear to be hypocrites and or to be consistent with what we're taking for some students and not taking for others and leaving some kids without. It's too amorphous at this point. We would need more time, more consistency to understand if those are the kinds of policies that we're going to implement across the board. This particular grant, I went to a luncheon for and saw the difference that these services make in the lives of kids who have access to it. It can be some of the only times that they get to work in teams around tech, and it can be life-changing for them. And so I am going to accept this money. I'm not going to say no. I'm going to accept the grant. I'm going to hope that it changes the lives of many, many students. And if and when we decide that we're going to come up with a policy as a board that's going to say no to receiving monies from any agencies that are engaging with the current federal government or branches thereof that are engaging in practices that we don't agree with, then we need to do that by policy.
Director Burke and then Director Mack.
First, I want to thank Director DeWolf for bringing this up because I think this is the type of conversation that really helps us as a board get our values out there and kind of work through these sort of issues, because a lot of these aren't black and white. They're not clean lines of we do this because of, for particular reasons. I will be supporting this. My lens that I'm looking at this from is, are we investing in their growth and their infrastructure, or are they investing in ours, and what is the return on that investment? I believe that we can have, as an educational institution, more impact on our students' outcomes with this support, and they may become future Amazon engineers, or they may not, but in either case, that is a benefit for our students that this external funding will provide. I could potentially be in a different position if we were funding something that supports the expansion and growth of the kind of the Amazon monolith and infrastructure, because I do have some concerns about that. But in this case, I will be supporting this action, and I'm super excited about what it will allow us to bring to our students.
Director Mack.
I can echo the comments made by my colleagues around the lack of clarity in our policies of denying funds from large corporations that do all sorts of things, and that level of consistency, that's a big question mark for me, and that this work and this project is actually, it's an amazing opportunity for a lot of our students. So I support it from that perspective, but I think the article that is brought forward raises a question that I need to get educated on. I think maybe as a board we need to get educated on, and we may or may not want to take board action depending on where things lie. I think that the question of what is our policy around, because I apologize for being ignorant about this, but what is our policy around ISIS coming to our schools? Seattle has a safe, I need to be educated on exactly what. They have to be redirected to them. Right, so this is, I need to be
And you mean
educated as a board member.
ICE, not ISIS.
Thank you, I do. I mean ICE, not ISIS. Apologies, that was a terrible, right, you're like, no. I need to be educated as a board member, and it would be helpful, maybe this is a longer conversation, but I would like to get educated as to what our practice and policies are on keeping our students safe in regards to ISIS and immigration and the things that are going on. So hello, Mr. Boy.
Hello.
I don't know that I'm asking for tonight to get the full, because we're not prepped for it, but
I am not going to educate you tonight, but I do want to briefly say, Ronald Boy, Senior Assistant General Counsel, that I am happy to announce that not only did we previously have a procedure that protected our kids that are immigrants, we just did some updates to that procedure that were just signed off by Superintendent today, which make it a little bit stronger, because we heard that there were issues with warrants from ICE being presented, so now we're making it very clear that it must be a judicial warrant. And I will send you those procedures tomorrow morning or tonight so you can review them and see that we do have really strong protections for our students in relation to ICE.
would this be an appropriate thing to come through one of the committees, like ops, at some point?
Yeah, I'd be happy to present the
And
procedure.
any
at ops as
changes
well.
to superintendent procedures are attached to the Friday memo, correct?
Yep.
Terrific, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Director Pinkham, did you have comments, questions, concerns?
Just some comments. I want to first thank Director DeWolf for bringing this up, because I think at least daylighting something like that and letting then possibly, if our families opt to, hey, if that's a concern to them, then it's daylight to them, and let them make the decision what they want to do. And I plan to vote for this because I think what it is supporting our students, but the more we can share with our families and communities out there, I think it's helpful as well. So thank you, Director DeWolf.
Director DeWolf, did you have other comments, questions, concerns, sir?
Just that if this board is really truly committed to that, then I hope we work quickly to create a policy that actually outlines this process, because what is most concerning to me is that this specific company collects these dollars that then turns around and does these projects that make us feel good and make us feel like we're going to be getting some money to be supporting our students. Those same dollars that are hurting families across this country are then going to be turned back in a positive light to supporting a lot of those students. Bailey Gatzer Elementary here, a lot of immigrant and refugee students there. I just was with that community this summer. So I think for me that is deeply concerning. Amazon holds 62% of the highest level authorizations for this database, usually needed to handle data for law enforcement and the tracking. And I can't support this, particularly given the amount of immigrant and refugee students not only in our community, but Seattle World School students that are right in my own neighborhood. So,
Which is your right. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Burke? Director DeWolf?
no.
Director Geary?
Aye.
Director Mack?
Aye.
Director Pinkham?
Aye.
Director Harris?
Aye.
This motion has passed with a vote of 5 to 1.
Action item number 2, Discovery Research K-12, DRK-12 grant from the National Science Foundation. This came before A&F August 19th for approval. Motion, please.
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to accept the Discovery Research K-12, DRK-12 grant from the National Science Foundation, which was awarded on July 1st, 2019, in the amount of $500,000 per year for 3 years, for a total of $1,500,000 for the 3-year grant period.
Second.
Mayor DeBacker, take it away, please.
Just a few additional items from last week's introduction. The University of Washington applied for this grant for 3 years, November of 2016, 2017, and 2018. And they were awarded the grant on June 21st of 2019. You were informed that we were a recipient, or we would be a recipient of part of that grant for professional development for teachers in early July. The PD funds will not be used to supplant what we approved in terms of the science adoption earlier this spring. It is really a supplement to, and is really around making sure that our teachers are ready to teach to the culturally and linguistically diverse students in our district. Thus, the explanation for why we put additional information into the equity analysis of the bar. So in response to citizen Chris Jenkins' question about how the bar grew, it is around that equity analysis that we thought was very important as we worked with that. The grant will provide an additional 2 days of PD each summer to focus on the culturally responsive science teaching. It is part of a network of elementary, secondary teachers, principals, family specialists, and researchers. It is a grant that is part of a networked improvement community out of the Carnegie Foundation, and it has been used with Dr. Thompson. You met her last week, and she is also here today. She has done this with the Highline Public Schools and other teachers working across Western Washington.
Comments, questions, concerns? Director Burke.
I have a question regarding the funding and how it articulates the. It looks like in the timeline for implementation, there is 2.0 FTE staff associated with this. At $500,000 per year, where is the additional funding going? Is some of that go to the University of Washington, or does it go to our educators, or what is the? Where's the money go?
Okay, if you're referring to page 7 on the board agenda item, under the timeline for implementation, I believe, is that correct? You're correct in that there will be 2 FTE that will be funded through this, and then also the professional development that will happen. There's also 0.2 secondary specialists who will also be working with this program. And for more specifics, I do have assistance with Mary Margaret here and also Jessica Thompson, if you prefer.
Yeah, that would be helpful for me because it looks like the 2.0 staff works out to 1.0 specialist and 5 of 0.2.
That's correct. Absolutely, Director Burke, that's exactly correct. We will not be funding our secondary specialists this year in that way because it would take a 0.2 release, and we couldn't do that at this moment. So we'll be paying our secondary specialists with extra time only for this year, with the anticipation that the following year we'll actually hire our secondary specialists as a 0.2 release to help assist in the grant. And you are correct that that adds up to 1.0. And then the additional funding is for elementary science specialists who will be able to go into the field and work directly with teachers in a coaching and in coaching position and collecting data.
Thank you. So I guess that's the root of my question. Is that looks like that makes 200,000 plus of the 500. Where's the remaining 300 allocated to?
To the professional development. You were correct on that as well. So for the release time for the teachers and for the additional time in the summer, that will be paid. And then there's also what we call professional learning communities. So those are hours after the school day that we also pay teachers for. So the additional resources will go directly to funding teachers.
Go ahead.
One more clarification question. When I was looking at the research around this and NSF grants related science work, it looked to me like there's a lot of sort of grants that fund grants that fund grants. There's the research supports future grants in a lot of ways, so the work builds on itself. And that brings up the question, well, what is funding is this award directly from the National Science Foundation to us, or is it through University of Washington? So University of Washington is getting their operating costs paid separately from this grant.
That's
this
correct.
Is just our costs.
That's correct. So the total grant is $3 million, and this component of it, which is articulated in the bar, is specifically just for us.
Okay, thank you. I raised some of my concerns at the last meeting about NSF grants, and I'm in looking more at I can't not accept money for the district, but I can in good conscience support this, so I will be abstaining on this vote.
Director Mack?
I appreciate the clarification from Ms. DeBacker that this won't be supplanting, but I'm kind of curious why not when we don't have the budget for the elementary PD already, if I remember correctly. So this seems to me like this is it's a windfall of wondrous dollars coming in to pay for PD that we committed to when we adopted elementary, but we don't have dedicated budget for in the future, as I remember that discussion. So I'm kind of curious as to why we're saying this isn't supplanting. I would think it should be offsetting the costs that we've already committed to.
I do. I'm going to attempt to answer this, and then if Mary Margaret has something to add. Keep in mind that when the University of Washington was applying for this grant over the past 3 years, we did not have the science adoption even on the table when they started this. This grant is about instruction. It's not about curriculum. And I think that's a difference between it. So it is about helping teachers get better at teaching, and no matter what curriculum is around it. So I think that the funding is there that we need at this point, especially as we think about how we are accelerating our elementaries. Remember, we're only bringing a few on in the first year. So not all elementary teachers are getting the PD around the new science curriculum.
But the approval that was, the board approved curriculum adoption included committing future dollars, and it was very specific that particularly for elementary, the PD requirements were substantial. And I recall voting no on that, on the elementary adoption. primarily for that reason. And the PD is the additional cost that we have committed to that we don't have revenue for. I'm kind of confused as to, this is PD for the elementary. I'm really not understanding why it's not actually being used to offset the already committed to costs that we don't have the dollars for. I understand that the grant was applied for and it wasn't a guarantee that we were ever going to get it, but to me it seems like it should be, this is where the funds are coming from to do the PD that we committed for, or at least part of it.
So, Director Mack, the PD funding that was allocated by the board in association with the elementary instructional materials adoption does actually help teachers understand how to use the instructional materials, so how to set up labs and how to use the digital platform and how to interface with the new texts that are within the context of the curriculum. And that funding has been allocated by the board, and those resources are available to us, which is exactly the monies that we had been will be using to help teachers understand how to use the instructional materials. This grant specifically was written to help teachers with their professional learning around culturally and linguistic diverse students, so students who are furthest from educational justice, as is associated with our strategic plan. So our strategic plan specifically asks us to dig deeper and to think about those children who have not been able to reach and access scientific literacy, and how are we going to make some adjustments to their practices so that every single child will have an opportunity to reach, and that's the context of the grant. So although they might look all the same because it's science education, one is specifically identifying students who are furthest from opportunities in science education and digging more deeply with teachers to help them associate those kinds of learnings with those children. And the other is more nuts and bolts of this is how you use the instructional materials, these are the digital tools, these are the books that are associated with it, and that's the piece that the board did allocate funding for, and we are using those funds to move forward.
Other questions, comments, concerns from my colleagues? I'd like to push back on Chief DeBacker's statement that we didn't know we were going to do a curriculum adoption in November. I could not more vehemently disagree with you, and I will appreciate you were not here at the time. That came from pushback from this board to the blanket adoptions that was well underway. And I again ask when this board was advised of this NSF grant application. We spent dozens and dozens of hours being learned up, and I don't recall it, and I did very specifically ask for that information in intro.
Let me correct my words. We did not have a science adoption going on when the University of Washington applied for this in November of 2016 and 2017.
We did in November 2018, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
You were, the board was informed during the deliberation process of the science curriculum that we were part of, that we have been invited to participate in the grant that was being sought after. I don't know exactly when, but Ms. Welch did mention that during the deliberations.
Will we be at all more specific? Were they on paper? Were they on 3x3s? Were they in a work session? I'm sorry to push this hard, but this was a very, very painful adoption. I think everybody can agree with that, and that we can do better in the future. But when we break trust, or we have the perception of breaking trust, because then the result is the same, perception, reality, it takes us 10 times longer to earn it back. And I'm hugely concerned by this.
I can state for a fact that you were informed in a Friday memo in July, at the beginning of July. When it was mentioned in the deliberations, I believe it was during the work session. So.
Thank you. Other comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? Director Pinkham.
And you had mentioned that this is more regards to instruction, not curriculum for this. Although there is a comment in the last paragraph, this grant will help us enrich page 5. This grant will help us enrich the curriculum through professional development that incorporates the student's life experience and culture and provide instruction delivered by high-quality, culturally responsive educators. So this will impact the curriculum in a way.
Yes.
Yes.
Better instruction will impact the.
So that's how you're taking that. So just want to, when we say enrich the curriculum, it's not changing the curriculum, it's just adding more to it. Just want to make sure that's
I would
clarified.
agree, yes.
Director Burke?
One of the fun things we get to do down here, up here, over here, is to try to help break down the silos. So my question, in light of Director Pinkham's comment, is what is the intersection between this work and our ethnic studies work, which should be intentionally building on and within and through adoptions? Or either what is or what could be.
No, I mean, obviously, there will be connections between that. The ethnic studies work, we have an update coming to the CNI committee in next week. And you'll find out that a lot of work has been done on that. We are waiting for policy 2015 to get through so that we can more quickly move through ethnic studies. And so yes, the intersection's there.
Is there a science work group that's doing on the ethnic studies group that can be kind of plugged into this?
So Director Burke, that was actually very astute of you to see that, because actually the component of this grant is specifically through ethnic studies. So when we're looking at culturally and linguistically diverse students, we are looking at students who have been marginalized from science experiences. And the intersection is definitely there, and the question you asked is the important one, will be, because the grant hasn't been accepted yet, and we were only awarded the grant in July. And so as soon as we have an opportunity to move forward, then those intersections will be daylighted even more. But as a very specific component of the grant, we think about culturally relevant teaching pedagogy, and we also are looking at ethnic diversity and how to intersect those opportunities every place we can see them within the science curriculum.
May I follow up on that question, please? So does that mean then that we will be working with our Seattle Public Schools Ethnic Studies Department, not with the UW, not with some other entity?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Harris. In fact, there is an advisory committee that Dr. DeBacker has already helped me to think about internally, who will be serving to help inform and to help guide the grant as we move forward for those intersections to be more explicit.
And do we have any sense of how much of the money or how much bandwidth we'll be devoting to that?
To the ethnic studies component of it?
Yes, ma'am.
I would be guessing at this moment to tell you a percentage of it. It's a huge piece of what we need to focus on. That's what it means to be culturally and linguistically diverse, focused. So indeed, it's an element that's essential to moving forward with the grant.
Thank you. Other comments, questions, concerns from my colleagues? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Director Geary?
Aye.
Director Mack?
Aye.
Director Pinkham?
Aye.
Director Burke?
Abstain.
Director DeWolf?
Aye.
Director Harris?
Abstain.
This motion is passed with a vote of 4-0 to 2.
Moving on, number 3, approval of the draft project agreement, quote, teacher diversity contract, end quote, between the City of Seattle, Department of Education and Early Learning, DEL, and the Seattle Public Schools, SPS, to diversify the educator workforce. This came before Audit and Finance, August 19th for
Approval.
motion, please.
I move that the school board authorize the superintendent to execute the draft teacher diversity contract with the Department of Education and Early Learning and accept funds in the amount of $550,000 for the purposes of advancing diversity among the educator workforce.
Second.
Take it away, Chief Dr. Codd.
Yes, so Chief of Human Resources Clover Codd, there have been no changes since introduction. I've received no questions from board directors or community regarding this board action report. I did introduction last time. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this moment.
I triple dog dare my colleague. Roll call, please.
Director Pinkham,
Aye.
Director Burke,
Aye.
Director Geary,
Aye.
Director DeWolf,
Aye.
Director Mack,
Aye.
Director Harris.
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you
Number
very much.
4 and last, amendments to Superintendent Denise Juneau's employment agreement to address performance compensation amounts for 2019-20 and 2021 and base salary for 2019-20 to Exhibit A, performance evaluation compensation criteria, to the superintendent's employment agreement to change the bonus payment date from June 30th to September 30th and define previously undefined terms and authorization for future salary discussions with the superintendent. This came before Executive Committee August 21st for approval. Motion, please.
I move that the board approve increasing the superintendent's base salary by 2% or $5,900 per 12 months for a new base salary amount of $300,900. I move that this board set the performance compensation amount for the 2019-20 school year at $15,000, for the 2021 contract year at $15,000. I move that the board approve amended Exhibit A to the superintendent's employment agreement as attached in this board report. I move that the board authorize the board president and board vice president to have salary discussions with the superintendent connected to her salary and bonus increases starting with the 2021 school year. Approval of this motion authorizes the board president to 1. Execute amendment number 2 to the superintendent's employment agreement as attached to the board action report, and 2. Execute amended Exhibit A to the superintendent's employment agreement, which shall replace Exhibit A with any minor additions, deletions, or modifications deemed necessary.
Second.
Mr. Serqui, take it away.
Good evening, John Serqui, Deputy General, Chief Counsel. At introduction, there were no questions from the school board members related to the bar that you have in front of you. Subsequently, Director Geary did ask that I clarify on the record 2 questions, so Superintendent Juneau, feel free to jump in if you would like. The 2 questions are, what's the timeline for when the base data will be provided to the school board, and what's the timeline that that base data then will be evaluated in this current school year, the 1920 school year? And the second question relates to if the percentage increases, example is 32 to 37%. So if, say at the end of this year, it's the African-American males are at 40%, do you go from 40 to 45 the next school year? And the answer is yes. You don't go from 32 to 42. You would start at the new base, which is whatever it ends up being, which is 40. If it's 40% in my hypothetical, then you would start, she would need to achieve a 45 in year 2 for African American males. And I'll let maybe Denise Juneau jump into the first question.
The way I read the amendment is that there are no timeframes put around the increase of improvement, and therefore it would be fair to interpret a contract that it is a 5% increase from the signing of the contract, but it's 5% for both years, and it isn't saying 5% more or 5% based upon a given year. There isn't a start date as to when the measure of the 5%, and especially in the second year. The first year I don't have a concern about. It would be the second year. Is it 2 years to get to that 5%? And if you manage to get that first 5% in the second year, you get the bonus? Do you get the 5% if you only raise it 5% in the second year but not the first year? There's just clarification around the start and the end and the measures it seemed so simple. And I guess I'm a little perturbed because I raised this exact issue in committee when it came up, or at some point when I believe there was some discussion about this. This was the exact same thing that I raised. Because when I looked at it, I saw that it hadn't been addressed. So, and at that point, there was acknowledgement, I believe, that what we're looking at is that you need to get the 5% and the 3% in the first year to get the bonus. And then whatever, then at the starting of the next school year, it's from that point a 5% or a 3% increase.
Correct.
Based upon that individual school year.
Correct.
And that is your understanding?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted that clarified somewhere in a record so that at a future point, if there was a misunderstanding, we would all be able to look, I guess, here and not within the four corners of the document, which
Right.
is
I would
makes
say-
me nervous.
Okay, so because it's based on ESPA, right? There is a year certain and a time certain when those scores come up in any given year. And so one of the amendments is the first contract basically said June would be the measurement of the baseline. So 30% in June, say, right?
Which June?
June of that year. And so say it's 30%. The reason there is an amendment to change that is because the SPA scores actually aren't final until September, October of that year, that specific year. And that would, great, and that would be the measurement. And then the next year would be starting from that new baseline onto the next year.
It always helps to clarify baseline when you're talking about a measurement and a time frame.
Got it.
Director Mack?
I haven't raised this question with anyone yet, so it's new. I know that other folks have been having conversations around it, but the issue of the disaggregated data for the second one, I'm wondering if it's possible as an information request, and that even in spite of the fact that the measure is based on the aggregate 3%, if we could please have the data disaggregated when it is presented so that we can see what's going on. Not that I don't think that changes the intent or the actual, what the measure is, that it's 3 points on aggregate. But I think it'd be very informative for us as a district to be able to see that disaggregated data. And I know that lots of folks consistently ask for disaggregated data, and we want to make sure that we...
Of course, I mean, if it meets the threshold of being able to be presented publicly, we can definitely do that.
Right, if we don't have too many small
Right.
student numbers, I get that, but thank you.
Director Burke, please.
That builds really well on a conversation that's been taking place over the last couple of days, and and then today. And so I want to thank Superintendent Juneau and staff for helping get into the meat and potatoes of it. This question around disaggregating data, we have populations of our students that don't show up in our data. And so my feeling was we should be disaggregating the data for this most visible and prominent level of oversight, in our strategic plan, our leadership. And so I was going to propose an amendment to do that. When in conversing with what that actually meant we have a 5% threshold for African American males, third grade. We then have a 3% threshold for other students farthest from educational justice, all students farthest from educational justice. And the part of me focusing on those students that have not been elevated was, wow, we should not just be doing it as an aggregate, we should disaggregate. But when you think about what that actually means, it means that, well, each of those groups has to be above 3%. So it's certain that the aggregate is going to be significantly above 3% because just the law of averages, some of them are going to be 3, some of them might be even higher. And it's a really big lift. And then also the fact that, some of the small N sizes really vary a lot year to year. So there's a lot of kind of statistical variation as that comes through. So I appreciate Director Mack's request to have it be part of the discussion. And maybe that would be something that in future negotiations, if there was a certain threshold or a certain way to do that that made statistical sense. But I just wanted to elevate the importance of looking at those numbers. And I did determine after looking at that analysis that it would not be in the best interest for us as a district or for our leadership to have that actually be an amendment.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Director Pinkham, thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I brought up when I was looking at this when it was brought for introduction about, okay, well, what if all the other students, totally they were 3% or above, but there was still one group that might have declined or didn't improve as much. So I appreciate the ask if we can share all the data, and hopefully we'll learn from that data. Oh, look, this one group didn't do as well. So our next year's strategy, we need to make sure we pull those students up, that they don't keep on falling behind, that we're being more purposeful. Here's a group, African American, they raised by 6%, great, but there's still this other population that's dropping every year. Maybe the targeted universalism needs to not working as well as we thought it would. We need to see what we can do for groups that are still maybe falling behind. So that's why I appreciate people asking that we desegregate this information. We'll stick with the language here that overall 3%, but if you can see that other data, I think it will help inform me better as to how we are doing truly for all of our students.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I have no doubt that we will meet these goals. I have no doubt that our very capable staff will assist the superintendent in meeting these goals. And I have no doubt that implanting a bonus into the superintendent's contract was a good idea then and is a good idea now. And it is not done by very many districts. And I'm very proud of the fact that we did do so and that you agreed to same and came to join us in our quest for the future of our children. Roll call, please.
Director Burke?
Aye.
Director DeWolf?
Aye.
Director Geary?
Aye.
Director Mack?
Aye.
Director Pinkham?
Aye.
Director Harris?
Aye.
This motion is passed unanimously.
And this meeting is adjourned at 6:38 p.m. Thank you all.